Hi guys, thanks for joining. This is Essence of Life. Today we're going to be talking about how we see the world. I'm Amanda Armagast.
This is Dr. Abbasi for Essence.
Dominic Moore.
So if you've watched our episodes before for how you see the world, it's pretty fun. We just talk about philosophy and our own beliefs, thoughts, reflections on life. I'm going to start off by asking some questions and then we'll go around to have a different perspective, non-medical, doctorate.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to start off with a reflection section. What is the nature of consciousness and how do you perceive your own existence? You start.
It is an interesting question. I just was invited to a New Year's party, and we talked about this topic.
Oh.
At the end of that, everybody wanted to have my cell phone number to connect back to me because they thought they really enjoyed that. So why don't I just sort of replicate the conversation I had there by asking you, what do you mean? What is the consciousness for you, Amanda?
Consciousness is the way I view consciousness is being awake and alert and aware of the people around you. I think that some people are conscious in the sense that they're moving around, they're, alive, but they don't have like a general consciousness where they can relate and compare to the people around them. They lack empathy, they lack sometimes critical thinking, and the people I'm thinking about, not anything wrong with them, but they just really could not care less about anyone else around them. They don't care about what their actions, how they impact not only people, but the environment, the future, and things like that. They're truly living just in the now.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a full consciousness.
So, you just summarized what we call social consciousness, what we call emotional consciousness, but obviously some other aspect of the consciousness. Dominic, what is the consciousness for you?
So when I think of consciousness, I think of it as an awareness of your actions. So I think that that's kind of a good way of transitioning to the social and the emotional one, because, for example, if we think of a rock, let's just say flat out, okay, let's call this rock doesn't have consciousness. If a rock falls from a hill and it doesn't have any thoughts on that, you'd be like, oh, it doesn't have consciousness. If a rock is able to think about, I'm falling from a hill, what does this mean? Or even, something as simple as, okay, why am I falling from this hill? That's a level of consciousness. It's able to perceive the actions happening to it, or, if it's an animal, it can perceive the actions that it's performing. So that sort of perception that it sometimes can feel more third party. Like, I understand I'm hungry. I know my body is sending me these signals. I want to eat all the time. I don't need to eat all the time. That sort of thing.
What Dominic just described is actually what I am, which is a panpsychic, where I think that everything has consciousness. I think that grass has consciousness. I think that trees do. Obviously, if you guys know me by now, I think that animals do. I'm very attached to them. So yeah, Dominic, I relate to what you just said.
So now, obviously, except Amanda, most of people don't consider a piece of stone has consciousness.
I just think there's different levels.
No, but let's just go as a general, like there is no law that would protect. There are even laws, animal cruelty law. But there's no law that you can take a stone and do whatever you want to do with that. In the eyes of the law and society, stone doesn't have a consciousness. But I want to go a little extreme, unusually in Amanda's direction. How do you know? How do you know if the stone has consciousness or not? This is a philosophical, and I want to take it to other areas. So you don't really know, right? Yeah. But there's a piece of stone doesn't communicate with you in a way that conveys consciousness, because you have a set of rules. So you have set your mind on what consciousness is, because you are conscious. Now I want to take it to another extreme. I think, therefore I am. It's from a famous philosopher. I think it was from Kant.
Yeah, it's Kant.
So that says, I think, therefore I am. I know I exist. But how do I know you exist? You told me one of your friends, you think sometimes that that person thinks that anybody
No,
else is
that person told me.
that person told you
Yeah,
that that person thinks everybody else is just like
a character.
a character in a cosmic play or cosmic, the show. That now that is not far off. That philosophically, the only thing you can be sure of that you exist and your consciousness exists. Everything else might be. So, I mean, this as well. You remember one side is that the stone has consciousness. The other side, you only know that you have consciousness.
Yeah.
These are the two extremes of the same train of thoughts, philosophical thoughts about what is consciousness. But more or less, we know that individually we have consciousness because we can explore our inner self. Like easy exercise, okay? Close your eyes and make a picture of this room with everything that's in it. Now you have created a 3D version of this room, a model of that in that room. Now in that room, in your mind, walk from one side to another. Have you done it?
Yeah.
So now open your eyes. You see that there? That requires you to create the inside picture of outside, what's outside. And then you traverse that room. You walk that room across that you built in your mind, and you did it all in a fraction of a second. And the ability, first of all, the consciousness doesn't requires for you to communicate to the outside world.
Yeah, it does not.
All what you did inside of you is enough for you to be conscious. As a matter of fact, there are certain group of people that in that party we talked about, they are called the locked-in syndrome. Do you know what that is?
I don't.
The locked-in syndrome is probably the worst thing anybody can have. If you have a damage like a pontine hemorrhage.
Oh no, I think I know where this is going. Yeah.
You want to tell us what it is?
Oh no, you keep going because I don't want to lead us on a different tangent. But
So
essentially, the idea of you are perceiving everything but unable to really interact. It's just sort of still up
you
here.
can hear, you can receive the input from outside the world, but there is no way you can communicate it out because your brain has separated the connection that enable you to talk, move, do anything that makes you like, how do you know a stone is not conscious? Because stone is not telling you that.
Yes, exactly.
For all practical purpose, these are people who have consciousness like a stone. They cannot communicate it to you. But how do we know that? If that's the case, how do we know locked-in syndrome people are conscious, trapped inside of their own body? How do we know that?
I'm assuming we'd be able to measure brain waves and activity.
No, wouldn't be enough because put people in a coma, they still
True,
have brain
very true.
activities. As a matter of fact, when you're sleeping, you're not conscious. You have a huge brain activity.
Yeah, there's actually a spike like 3 times a night.
Were
Yeah.
they born like that? Like
No, they have
so
an
they already know
accidental-
language. So you can say like
Like you know, they're not in coma.
right. No, but what I'm saying is if they already know language, then you could say, move your eyes this way.
They
And
can't.
they can't.
No,
But
nothing.
that's funny you say that.
They're like a mannequin.
They cannot do anything. They cannot get any signals from their brain outside of the brain, except one thing.
Even their breath.
No, they cannot even breathe by themselves. They have to be on the machine and so on. Sometimes they can breathe because that is vegetative and so on.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying like if Dominic said to me, show me you're alive or show me you're conscious without moving your eyes or your body, I could breathe faster or so they can't control them.
No, it's sort of like their heart rate. Like it just does whatever it's going to do. Sympathetic, really.
So it's funny you said about seeing and eyes controlling the eyes. There is one nerve, the way it connects to our muscle in our eye, it goes below that level of damage. The pontine hemorrhage usually causes this kind of problem. There is one nerve that the way it connects, it connects below the damage, or it exits the brain below the damage.
Huh.
That is a muscle that moves the eye from up and out. So
oh,
30 years ago, we discovered, or about that, maybe more, maybe less, we discovered that one person that the motion of the eye is not random. And the caretaker communicate a code that based on like, this is yes, this is no, or this is A, this is
2 ups is yes, 2 ups is no.
but just based on that motion, we learned to communicate with that patient. And that person in locked-in syndrome wrote a whole book about how it is to be in a locked-in syndrome.
Wow.
what hell? Oh my gosh.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. But imagine that. So we know you can be conscious without giving any signal.
Mhm.
Now let's go back there again. Is the stone conscious or not conscious? We know it cannot communicate with us,
Mhm.
but is it conscious or not? Based on our understanding of consciousness, stone doesn't have a complex structure that enables the information to process.
Mhm.
But that's only one way of consciousness.
Well,
We-
that's only comparing it to what we know. How can you say how can you say no, rocks aren't conscious? Like, how can
Well-
you say that? You don't know. You're just comparing to yourself. It's kind of like egotistical, like you're only comparing it to yourself and saying this is
and I can take that train of thoughts and just tell you, I don't know if you exist or not. You might be just my imagination.
but that's okay if you don't know, but behave as if it is. Like, I don't know if you exist, but I'm still going to treat you like a human. Just like I don't know if the tree hurts, but I'm not going to like kick it. I'm not going to like vandalize the tree.
Well, what I'm trying to tell here, the consciousness that we consider consciousness is a very complex
Mhm.
kind of concept that is based on the processing information. Like you need the outside input to build that mental picture in your brain. But once you have that mental picture in your brain, you don't need the outside system at all. What that means that based on that information, the consciousness is something that develops and develops further and further. Now, I'm going to tell you, let's do the same experiment now. I'm going to do that experiment. Close your eyes. Imagine Ubuntu and now walk with him. Just open your eyes.
What is that?
You see that there? If you don't know what Ubuntu is, you cannot make a mental picture of it. Do you see that's the point?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that sense, if you haven't developed, that capacity to understand other concepts or you don't know them, you cannot build a mental picture of it.
True.
For all practical purpose, that thing doesn't exist for you.
Mhm.
So that means your consciousness this year is not the same next year than the next year. And now I'm going to take your consciousness back in time. Are you conscious when you are in the womb of your mother?
No, I don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say because we specifically have pathways that keep that from our memory if we were to
Right,
even
it would
know.
be too traumatic.
No, well, no. If you say stones are conscious, then you definitely should say
Well, no, I don't know.
we don't know. We don't know.
Because I don't
That's a-
know if, like, for me, a stone is itself, but maybe I think
But-
that a fetus is part of the mom.
Yeah, well, we know at what we know neurophysiologically, at what point we are able to receive certain input. We know your brain is kept very, very rudimentary before you are born because your brain has to pass through the pelvis of your mother.
Mhm.
90% of your pathway axons are not myelinated. They are not functional in your brain. We know that.
Mhm.
But we know as soon as you come out, you start absorbing information. By the time you are 1 year old, you know many words.
Mhm.
You can make that concept in your brain. By the time you are like 2 years old, you understand what is the concept of right and wrong.
Mm.
That is about 4 years old, I
Yeah.
would say, okay? You understand the concept of lying. You understand concept
Yeah.
of, the
Of love.
of love. And so that's probably concept of love you understand much, much
Right
before,
away.
right away, because
Mm.
that is survival for us, okay?
Mm.
So let's go back now to what is consciousness. We talked about we talked about the emotional thing, that consciousness is understanding who you are and who others are and reacting accordingly. That you deal with other people like a conscious people. You don't
Mm.
aim to hurt them.
Mhm.
You understand emotional consciousness, meaning that you feel who you are. You can build a model of the external world in your inside of your brain, and make no mistake, it's all inside of your brain. And then you can use that model to make experiments and make thought experiment, make
Oh.
actual experiments about, how what that. So you have an idea, like just before we started, he was telling me I shouldn't introduce myself like I want this from you. I should say hi, hello, how are you? You have made a picture in your brain about the human interaction, and in that interaction, that model performs the best.
Mm.
Okay, I didn't make that model. For me, is don't waste my time. What do you want from me? This is what I want. That model. You see, my model in my brain is worked the best in my brain. Now, in the real world, we
Mm.
have to put your model and my model to test
Mhm.
and see which one works best. And that is the value of empirical
Mhm.
science and so on. Now, let's go to the next step. On the actual neurophysiology, brain science.
Okay.
I just give you some examples. If you have a pontine hemorrhage, you got it locked in, you have the consciousness, but you cannot communicate that. What do we know about what level of brain do you have to damage for the consciousness completely go away? Or at least to the best of our
Mm.
knowledge?
Honestly, I'm not sure. It's kind of a good question
Probably a
because
little below pons, right?
yeah, but I can't think of a lot of like any historical, because even the locked-in syndrome, I anecdotally have heard of something like that. But I feel as if I can't remember a case or ever hearing of a person no consciousness, but like still functioning, if that makes
No.
sense.
Yes, it does. Coma, people in coma. You have
I-
a lot of people in coma. We have a lot of people with lots of damage. That is the deepest we have gone to find out that at the pontine level, at certain level in the pontine level, you're still conscious, but you cannot communicate. But we have a good evidence at certain level below that, you have no ability to receive anything either.
Okay, no more input information doesn't come in. The black hole is filled.
It's nothing that comes to your ears get where it needs to go. And that is below pons in the so-called periaqueductal gray or reticular formation. Do you know
Oh,
what that
reticular
is?
form. Yes.
Tell me, what is reticular formation?
Oh, trust me, I want to scientist. No, no, no. This feels like a trap.
Now, reticular formation, or RF,
Hmm.
is a big word in your domain of work, because all these pseudoscientists, oh, reticular formation, it's a big deal. It is like when you go to a party, you would mention that word. Oh, he knows
Yeah, I
reticular
I've listened
formation and
so I
so
can
on.
bring it up with my friends.
Yeah, that is where you are. We things are, um, we think our um, awareness and so on is something very complex and so on. But in truth, there is a pacemaker inside of our brain, central nervous system. We are not our heart. We are not our face or arm and hand. We are our brain.
Yeah, you replace all of
Like,
this,
yeah.
if we have the technology.
Pounds of gelatinous material with connection is who we are.
Mhm.
Now, how do I know that you are not a stone? Because when I say, Dominic, you look at me and you respond, right? How do you respond? Now, 100 people may call you, but when I call you, you filter my voice and respond to me. Because if you don't, I will be upset, and that may have more consequence for you. No, in life,
Yeah.
100 people may call you, but if you don't do what I'm asking you, that may have more severe consequences for you. Your brain knows how to filter my words, my voice against lots of others.
Yeah.
Like you're in the middle. Amanda is calling you from one side, and I'm talking, screaming, Dominic, come here. Amanda is screaming, Dominic, come here. Where do you go?
I split in two. Split in two. Spontaneous meiosis.
Realistically, your brain
He's gonna know.
get the signal from both sides, and then you make a decision.
Mhm.
How do you make a decision? You have a memory bank. You know where your paycheck is coming from. You prioritize things in your brain.
Mhm.
So, signal comes. How do you know? How often do you check, like literally, like a mail come in? How
Yeah.
often do you check your mailbox? Once
Well,
a day.
At least.
Well,
Yeah.
right? About.
No, not me, and not you either.
Okay. I'm
Well,
using that average.
She did his house, and the mailbox left the mailman left a note and was like, "You need to get your mail."
I check it before I leave when I get
I
home.
check my
Okay.
emails and my texts every day.
Okay, so most of people check their mailbox every day. Okay? So then you go there, you see something is there, you read the content, and then you react.
Mhm.
So
Correct.
for number one, a mail has to be there. Dominic! Number two, you have to check that mailbox. That mailbox is how often you check your sensory input,
Mhm.
what's new there. Like if I start calling you Dominic for a
The
whole day,
Pattern. Gonna stop checking
then
this
you
week.
don't check that anymore. But once I say Dom more, then different pattern. All of a sudden you go and check it. How do you know how often you check it? You need a pacemaker.
Okay.
You need a sun going up and down. Oh, it's morning. I'm going to work. Let's open up the mailbox to see what's new in it. That pacemaker is your periaqueductal gray or reticular formation. That tells you, we know some people are just faster than others. Some
Mhm.
people are slower and so on. Everybody has a pacemaker though. That tells you how often should you check the new things.
Mhm.
Meaning that if that area is gone, you don't check even if a new information is there or not.
Mhm.
Every sensory input comes into your brain, goes to a loop.
Dang.
Once your pacemaker check on that loop, get the information out of it, it opens up so you can have a new information in that thing. You can literally, you cannot look at my face and Amanda's face if you are in two opposite direction, right?
Yeah.
You have to get the input from one,
Uh-huh.
then process it, then you can, and it's obviously ridiculous how small that what we call short-term memory is. That's what your short-term memory is, okay?
Mhm.
How much do you have in your, how much memory do you have in your phone? Gigabytes.
64?
Gigabytes.
64, yeah.
How much, if you put it all together, somebody has done the job. In our short-term memory, how much memory do you think is in our short-term memory, in human short-term memory? Kilobytes.
No.
Ridiculous.
Really?
Ridiculous small. But we are so efficient of using that.
That's incredible. Hold on, I need a second because like this is high definition video my brain is processing right now. Basically, like I cannot really perceive images in higher definition than what my actual eyes can take. So this is clearly the greatest amount of data that they can absorb. And then of course there's audio that comes with it. But I guess you're right.
Look at your
Like
eyes.
10 seconds.
Do you
it's
think
gone.
your eyes are? Do you think your eyes are high definition?
Well,
Well,
not what
compare.
2020 is good enough for me.
Oh, look at that. Every single spot in that TV has the same resolution. Whereas in your eyes, only 3% of your eyes are high resolution. The rest is like, can you see me and Amanda? Amanda is next to me.
Hmm.
Can you see me and Amanda same sharpness?
Or like if you hold something on the side of your face, it looks black and white.
Yeah. So,
Oh my gosh, macular degeneration has got to be terrifying then, because you just lose that 3% of.
so, but that is your system is tuned that you have very little short-term memory, and it deletes that right away. Deleting irrelevant information is so crucial.
Mhm.
It is an active process. It is your brain deleting as fast as it can irrelevant information because it would get overloaded.
Yeah.
That process, do you know what receptor groups are involved in that process? Cannabinoids.
Is that why you can like diminish the emotional response and the memory like associated with things? It just huh.
About how come, like, sometimes, for instance, if you smoked a little bit of weed, you can hyper
I don't
focus.
smoke weed,
No,
but
but people that do,
people who
you
do
can-
like
I don't know. Some people do. Some
some
people
random,
don't.
random people. It's legal, so you
Some
can
people
have it.
don't. But oh, thank you for letting me admit that. For the permission. Anyway, if you do it, sometimes you can hyper focus on something that is not important at all. Is that why?
Because it is in the process involved. Every drug that worked on human must have natural receptors in
Mhm.
us. Now, I'm surprised that, no, that is a travesty of not doing research on cannabinoid for so long,
Mhm.
stigmatizing that and so on. We know so little about that, but we know that process of forgetting things is an active process. Like you walk on the street, you see hundreds of faces. After half a minute, you would be overloaded.
Mhm.
Your brain cannot absorb anything more. As a matter of fact, that's one of the problems with the autismus, that they cannot actively delete those information,
Oh, really?
and their brain is overloaded.
I think it's probably important to like kind of differentiate the passive form of like deleting memory that people might think of, oh, I forget this thing. It falls out of my head. That's not how it happens.
No.
Your mind says, this
Your
isn't
face
worth
is not
it.
important.
Get rid of it.
Your face is not important. Your face is not important. Your face is not important. All the 300 cars I'm watching passing
Mm.
me by or pass them on the road are not important.
Yeah.
Forget.
Mm.
That is an active process to not overload your brain, and cannabinoids are important in that process. That is why it helps you relax. It helps you to get rid of all the trauma you experience in your days. And more importantly, we have good evidence of that. We have a lot of cannabinoid receptors on uterus. Why would we have a cannabinoid receptor on uterus?
Forget childbirth? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you want to do it again?
See, aren't you surprised? Any woman in a sound mind, okay, you go through the first
Hmm.
giving birth to first baby. Aren't you surprised that they would go through that again? Ever,
Yes.
ever, like ever.
Hmm.
Didn't you do that
Well,
a few years
actually,
ago?
like some women say they love being pregnant.
But nobody loves giving birth to,
Hmm.
or nothing. So, but if you go and do that questionnaires, they rate the pain 6 months later, half of what it would
Mhm.
they rated the time they was giving birth to a baby. Forgetting that, forgetting information is an active process. And we know a lot about how the interconnections, there's a so-called Labbe circuit in our brain that you get the pain signal, you send it to certain places, you learn from that to
Okay.
not burn
Yes.
your hand.
Yes.
For God's sake, that is
Mhm.
what it is. Pain, Lord didn't want to torture us. Pain
Mhm.
is telling you your hand is burning. Stop touching the
Mhm.
burning wood. Okay? Now, but sometimes things that those circuits, once the circuits are there, it doesn't really matter if the burning wood is there or not.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, everything is your brain. You remember the room you traversed?
Yeah.
That room exists for you, no matter if I destroyed the room outside or not.
Mm.
That has its own legitimacy and that existence inside of your brain. Once you build those circuits for anything, they exist. If your hand stop hurting, but your brain has that circuit, that hand is still hurting. So this is not lying. This is not pretending. That
Yeah.
pain is real for those. And
Mhm.
we know, like we did in my residency with Dr. Nata, put a needle in the frontal part of the cingulate gyrus, called that cingulotomy. We burned an area size of my nail.
Mhm.
And this patient, we did it for obsessive compulsive disorder. These were
Okay.
people, kids who would hurt themselves.
Yeah.
He could do nothing about that. Once we put a hole there, then they could learn not to hurt themselves.
Mhm.
There's other part of the brain that if you disconnect that as well, all in frontal lobe mostly, that if you disconnect that, people, they are not aggressive anymore. They don't have emotional response to the pain.
Yeah.
Depression, you can treat depression. And guess what? We did all of that. It's called lobotomy.
Bodies, yeah.
But the problem with lobotomy, we remove too much connection. With
Mm.
cingulotomy or some other new method like stimulation, we can be more precise, have the good part without the bad part of the brain.
Okay, so like cancer on the pinky, you don't cut off the whole arm anymore.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Now, what does it have all to do with consciousness? So what it has to do with consciousness is that your consciousness is a pacemaker.
Mhm.
I am here. What new information do you have for me? But your personality is not your consciousness. Your personality is the bank of memory you have built over your time,
Mhm.
your personality. Next year you will be different. You don't know what Ubuntu is. Now you know. It's
nothing.
the African Ur god, that
Mhm.
god of something, okay? That it does punish people and so on and so on and so forth. So now you know. Now you can have a tea with Ubuntu. Before you couldn't. Because
True.
so that is how what our consciousness is much less complicated than we think it is. It is our ability, our consciousness is our ability to check if there's anything new there that has consequences for me, and how should I get the best out of that input, that sensory input.
And that makes sense. If I'm a monkey in the jungle and I'm hearing the crickets chirp all the time, but then suddenly I hear a roar or something, that's stimulus. I should be able to recognize and kind of assign an importance to that. I should be able
So
to
is the monkey conscious?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
He needs to be. It
Is
helps
the
him
cricket
survive.
conscious?
Is what?
Yeah.
Cricket
Yeah.
conscious. Yes,
Mhm.
because they're conscious of what hurts them and what
Mhm.
doesn't hurt them. Now, are they conscious at our level? No,
No.
they are not.
Yeah.
That you a minute ago you didn't know who Ubuntu was. You thought I made it up.
Mhm. Explain that to a
Everything-
cricket. It's still not going to know,
For cricket, everything is Ubuntu.
Mm.
Maybe if you could explain it in their language, maybe then they
We'll
would.
do that.
But no one's tried. Like that's the thing. Like
People have tried.
to speak cricket.
No, they have tried to teach, communicate with lots of animals. Some animals we can communicate,
Mhm.
some animals we cannot, even with the methods. So we see there is nobody has ever even tried to communicate with the stone. And I believe it's a waste of time, because stone doesn't have that intricate system to process information. You need something substrate. You need the passes of energy, and that's not mumbo jumbo. That is truly, you start with the energy at what level, with so-called what we call entropy. Energy doesn't get destroyed, but you change the entropy, and that process gives you a substrate that you can process information.
Mhm.
We have it. You're talking, you learned who Ubuntu is. Stone doesn't have that intricate thing that can process entropy.
Yeah.
Now, all living beings have that ability to process that what life is.
Yeah, growth and whatnot.
No, well, let me tell you something. Processing information is life. And processing information in one level or another, a different layer, and I agree with you. Consciousness has so many levels. In my opinion, all living beings, they have some level of consciousness. Even viruses, they don't, because they're dormant until they get into a system. But bacteria, they process information. They know what hurts them and what promotes their life. So that is the most rudimentary kind of consciousness. They know that this high acidity is going to kill me, they try
Mm.
actively to get away from that.
Yeah, you give them some little glucose down there, they're going to actively go towards it, you know?
Towards it. So now this is obviously not the level of consciousness we are talking about. So all animal in my, so that makes me a more
Panpsychic.
realistic panpsychic.
There's different levels to panpsychism.
But let's now go back to consciousness in the sense of personality. Now let's consider that personality is a developing things,
Mhm.
and next year, for God's sake, tomorrow you are more conscious than today, and that's a realistic thing as well. Wouldn't it be actually sad that tomorrow I'm less conscious
Some people I
than
think
today?
are, honestly.
But that is what, and then we have to, then play it out. So there are almost in all civilized world, there's a law that you cannot just go and kill a monkey
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
or a whale, because we consider them more conscious than a
Mhm.
cricket.
Even some places there's laws that you can't like cut down trees.
Well, that is some other reason for that, more the environmental. But I'm talking about the animal protection.
Mhm.
But nobody, like those stink bug you hate so much, nobody coming to charge you that you throw them down the toilet.
Mhm.
Okay, nobody going emotionally, ethically would.
Mhm.
You can kill as many of those as you want. Nobody. So there is level of consciousness that we naturally associate with different level of being. Like every time you eat, you're killing billions of bacteria.
Mhm. Mhm.
Should you go cry for them?
Yeah, when I wash my hand, I don't get arrested for murdering staphylococcus or anything like that.
Feel
So-
guilty.
Yeah.
So you see that there now, once you think about it, it's a natural thing for us to assign different level and value to consciousness.
What about like even bigger than molecules and like stuff like that? The universe. Do you think that the universe or like
Such an
planets?
interesting, that's such an
really
interesting. Let me
I
go.
wanna do a different, sorry to keep my sentence going, but I want to do a different topic, which is called essence of science. Is the universe alive? Because I've heard that the universe is alive.
Well, you remember we are going to do that.
Mhm.
We are going to do that kind of podcast exactly about that. No, but let's play it out. What I'm trying to tell you, Dominic, you are not your consciousness because that's not unique to you. Your
Mhm.
consciousness is just a pacemaker. Check the input, check the mailbox, check the
Mhm.
mailbox.
It's a
You
notification.
are
Yeah.
what you are is the database, the big library of your previous experiences
Mhm.
that your consciousness now check your input in your mailbox against your previous experiences like easy. You have at sometimes have touched fire.
Mhm. Yes. Pretty recently, unfortunately.
Well, for most of people, you have it in a very secure place. When you see the fire, one of the first things your consciousness check on that fire, hot, damage,
Mhm.
stay away from. Now, let's play it out. Your ex girlfriend or whatever.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
when you see her on the street, you may go and say hello, or you may take the other road and go away.
Yeah, number
Based
two.
on
Same.
based on database. That is based on your database,
Mm.
based on if positive or negative memories are predominantly come to your consciousness. Sometimes you're just dumb, even though you have lots of bad memories, bad experience, only the good ones come to your thing. You go there and try to reconnect and say hello. And sometimes, no, you're measuring everything against your database. And if your database is good, you benefit from that. If your database is bad, you get harmed in that process. But at the end of the day, what makes you, Dominic, or you, Amanda, is what you measure against the database that you have built in your life. And that database changes. So coming back to that, we just had a conversation about that people who bombed in that podcast. 20 years later, they are not the same people.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, let's develop that information processing. Let's develop that further. We are not going to talk about it today, but is universe conscious? I always wanted to write a book about that, that statistically, it is impossible for the universe not to be conscious. The theories of memes that Richard Dawkins, okay, selfish gene, go read those theories. If there is a substrate that energy comes and get higher entropy, if that process is long enough, it is almost impossible for the complexity not to achieve a level that becomes self-conscious.
You know, it's interesting that you bring that, because I've just as a slight side tangent, I've always wondered why when we refer to the amount of things that black holes consume, we say it's information. This black hole can hold this much information. Like we don't talk about mass, we don't talk about like particles or anything. It's always, okay, this black hole can hold like, I think it's 100 or like 103 bits or whatever, you know, that there of information. Like that's what's been calculated. So just a slight.
Black holes is like this is a completely different topic because everything we know breaks down at black holes. But what I'm getting at, they even wrote a programs on the computer. They give it certain rules and just started. And that program behaves lifelike. As a matter of fact, that's a big branch of informatics, computer science, and so on, that once you have a process that you have energy coming in and entropy increases, because energy doesn't get destroyed or created.
Just transfers.
Just transfers, and then entropy, that is what increases. If you have that gradient, it's in every thing you have, every medium you have, complex structures start creating themselves and they become more and more complex. So considering how old universe is, considering how the huge the gradient of entropy is, and that's a book I want to write, is it's almost impossible for the universe not to have a consciousness. And the title of my book is The Statistical Inevitability of God.
Yeah, I know.
Now, I mean, I'm just using it provocatively.
Yeah,
but this almost at that level, it's almost impossible not to have a consciousness, considering how the information transfers. That might be like it takes 1 billion years for one photon come from one side of the universe to others and so on. But they don't have to have our level of, like we were talking about. The cricket consciousness doesn't need to be your consciousness. And your consciousness might be for some other being, the same consciousness as a cricket.
That's what I was literally just thinking about.
Yeah, but statistically, if there is a medium, that consciousness must develop. Statistically, it's impossible not to develop that. Now, this is, lots of very militant atheists are just going to say this is mumbo jumbo, but this is just statistic. This is just practically putting everything we know about the universe in place. It is the same thing that I say it's almost impossible that there are no other lives in the universe.
Yeah, there's that whole like Fermi paradox too.
Fermi paradox. Fermi paradox.
Fermi.
What can you describe what Fermi paradox is?
It's essentially the idea that it statistically given the number of planets out there that exist,
number of the stars, number of the galaxies.
For us at this point in time, for how long the universe has been around, for us to be the only chance that life has happened.
Statistically, it's impossible.
Yes, exactly.
But the paradox comes from, if it's impossible, why haven't you found it? Why haven't you found them? And then goes down that, that that's a different conversation.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a big can of worms. We could go now, but.
So, no, let's have that. This requires a Fermi paradox. You be in charge of that. Let's do a podcast about life in universe and Fermi paradox.
Because I personally, of the theories for solving it, quote unquote, I have mine, but that's because I'm a little bit of I'm a hopeful nihilist. So like
nihilist.
Yes. So.
Oh.
What do you mean by that?
We got plenty of other times for that.
Let's do another one because I'm an existential nihilist.
Oh,
What
okay.
am I?
Okay.
No, you are not a nihilist at all.
I
You
know.
are the
What is that?
well, okay.
That's why I'm-
Okay, let's keep it. Let's keep it. Okay, this is we are diverting too much.
Yeah.
Let's do the 3 podcasts now already. Write it down.
Charlie.
Okay.
We'll speak it into here. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
you be in charge of that.
Okay.
Okay,
Now,
Don, you
number
might wanna
one.
write it down.
Okay.
I got this. I
One,
got this.
Number 1, life in the universe and Fermi paradox, essence
Okay.
of science. Number 2, essence of life and philosophy, nihilism.
Okay.
And then the third one is universe conscious.
Okay.
Okay, these are 3 topics we should talk about.
Hmm.
But coming back to that, the question was,
It's up, way up. What is the nature of consciousness and how do you perceive your own existence?
we just did all of that.
Yeah.
You close your eyes, you created an existence.
Mhm.
That
Mm.
information in your brain is not irrelevant, is not just a thought and so on. You created the room and you walked across that room. Even if I would destroy the actual room outside, you still can walk that room.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But that's as well important. That room has to exist before you created it in your. No, you know that you know what the room is. No, you
Mhm.
can create a fantasy room. But if you have no concept of room, period, there's nothing you cannot create Ubuntu
Mhm.
if
Yeah.
you don't know what it is.
Yeah. You can
Okay.
approximate something, but it's not
No,
the
no,
same,
but-
you know?
You can create your own version, but it's not what's
Exactly,
yeah.
globally recognized, I guess.
Well, but what I'm getting at, you have to have something to work with, a substrate.
Mm.
Then that substrate, you can create a model of that, and the ability to create these models in your brain is, in my opinion, the consciousness. Some people may disagree with that. And more importantly, is that we know a lot about how this process inside of our brain look like.
Mhm.
It is not mumbo jumbo. It is not like we talked about the palms injury and locked-in syndrome, and if it's below that in the reticular formation and in the periaqueductal gray,
Hmm.
is a loose bunch of nerves there that they practically like a pacemaker make you be not in coma.
Yeah.
How do we know that? Because if it's damaged, you're in coma.
Mm.
It doesn't really matter. Nothing really else doesn't matter, you know? Your eyes can see. We know they can see because we
Mm.
can record. We put a bird in front of your eyes. We can measure those things in your brain.
Mm.
But nobody comes ever check on that. What does that mean? If you don't check your mails, you might as well not get any mails.
Yeah, it's filled with birds, but who cares? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. And then we talked about, how do we process those information? So in this very short time, we really discussed lots of very important concepts.
Mhm.
And we have no material or ideas for 3 more.
And I wanted to
Topics.
also do essence of, I don't know if I want it to be like science or life. What is reality? Because we all kind of have like our own version of reality too.
Mhm. And we
Like-
did talk about that as well. Am I real?
No, reality as in like, what is reality to you sometimes genuinely is different than what is reality to me.
Do you mean like kind of
Yes,
how?
it is. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. That is such an interesting topic.
Right, don't you think? We'll
But-
do that. We'll do that. sometime.
Yeah. No, but let me give you a preview on that.
Ooh. Sneak peek.
Okay. What colors do you have to mix to get green?
Well, and that's the thing, like everyone says it's yellow and blue, but it's not. It's actually like red is not the primary color, it's magenta. Our primary colors that we learn in school aren't actually the primary.
Yeah, now
colors.
you're
You can-
hijacking
No,
it
you
again.
can,
Oh,
you
man.
can make those colors, but
No, no, but-
anyway, so technically elementary, you mix blue and yellow.
Blue and yellow give you green, right? Why? Because blue and green stimulate your cones in your eyes to the same amount that the green color does. But color green, wavelengths of green does exist actually. Color green does exist, but we don't perceive color green. We perceive some cones that understand this wavelength, some cones that understand this wavelengths, and color green stimulate them both to a certain amount that gives us.
Hmm.
So color green does exist in physics and in nature, but not in our brain. So how much green, how much blue and yellow do you have to mix to make green? That part is different for every single person.
Huh.
How do I know that? Because
Colorblind.
in my I'm color weak, not blind. I still see, but it's not to the same extent as the others. By the way, people who are color weak, they have much more graduation for gray. We are much better hunter at dusk and
And
dawn.
better looking
Oh.
at images, right? Like
Yeah.
surgical, like X-rays.
X-ray images, they're
Yeah.
all black and white.
Oh my gosh,
But
lucky.
that's
Right.
the
Dr.
honest.
Kim is
So
color weak too.
but that makes us better surgeon. We can look at the picture. Other
Yeah.
people say, how can you see the pedicle? Oh, it's right there. It's right there.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah, same with Kim.
So that's what makes us really good spine surgeon, because we can see on that X-ray, we can see the pedicle nobody else can see. But beyond that, now, in my med school, once I found out that I'm a color weak, I really was interested in a machine. In that machine, on one side, you have pure green.
Mhm.
On the other side, you mix blue and yellow to make that those sides are identical.
Okay.
We were 10 people. The mix for not even for 2 of us was the same. Every single of us had to mix the blue and yellow to different proportion to make it like a pure.
Mm.
What does that mean? 10 of us, and they weren't color blind or color weak, they were normal people. Even for them, not even 2 people in their brain had the same perception of color green.
That's fascinating. And I could see how that could make like other people anxious, because what if it's not just green? You know, how many other things are
No,
there?
but if you
it's
can
just-
say that about the color,
Yeah.
now let's talk about the different ideas like justice
Mhm, exactly.
and right and wrong
Mm.
and God and so on. If we cannot really, for not even for 2 people, the color green is the same.
Hmm.
How many versions of God do they exist in our brain that we have to fight about? Or how many versions of justice and right and wrong?
Yeah.
If even a color green is different
You
for 2
can't even-
people.
And it's so true, because it's just that color one, that is just genetic. That is, your body has only the biologics to perceive it this way. So then when we add in all of this data bank of memory that helps to contribute to our decision making too, it's like, well,
And now let's
Or
talk about
even-
reality.
Even like eye damage can probably change
Yeah.
the way you see green.
No, but we talked about that in talk about what is the reality. Does reality exist? The reality exists in your brain.
Hmm.
That is where the reality exists. Like, you sit there, but you sit there only because I have a mental, that room you remember we talked about exists because you made it and you walked through it. Now you made it after a real model, but in your model, I bet in your model that you made of that room, was that a skeleton in that corner?
nope.
No, but all those poles were.
Yeah, you see that now? Now you added
Now the
that.
skeleton will.
No,
I'm
be
actually pretty sure there were more chairs in my model too.
Yeah, you see that there?
like some
You
weird
see that
AI
there?
image.
No, you see that there. Now all of us, we get to that room and we start breaking each other's head to say how many chairs or if the
Mhm.
skeleton was there or not and so on. That model is different for every person, is individually different.
Hmm.
And that once you understand that, then you don't become a fanatic about, no, that's the room and that's how
Yeah.
it look like. And that is the only room, that's the only way the room exists and so on. No.
Mhm.
It is that makes you more malleable to listen to people. Once you understand that is just everything, the reality is just the creation of your brain.
Mhm.
And in many areas, like in law, we know your memories
Yeah.
faulty.
Yeah, I was just
So,
thinking about law, like eyewitness testimony really doesn't have that much weight in court because your memory can play pranks.
anymore,
Mm.
Yeah.
anymore, yeah, because we used to send people destroy people's life on faulty memory of people and so on and so
Mhm.
forth. So, but you see how many interesting concepts we just talked about? The nature of reality. Let's make it the essence of science.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna change the topic for this too.
Yeah.
I'll let you know now. Thank you guys for watching. This was Essence of Science. Today we talked about the nature of consciousness. I'm Amanda Armagast.
Dominic Moore.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Be
It was
safe.
Friday.
Yeah.